I hope I find you very well this Saturday afternoon, or at least better than our Democratic compatriots in the US. What a week they've had. Dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. What on earth went wrong there? Shock horror. It was meant to be a close election. It was meant to be on a knife edge. None of it. Donald Trump, I mean, you can't say it was the Russian bots what won it on this occasion. Absolutely not. You could get away with that in 2016, but not now. No, he won by a landslide. A landslide. Now, let's just reflect on that for a second, because there's been a lot of talk about this since the results came out. And I honestly thought that we might be in a situation where on my Saturday show, we might still be waiting for the results to come out, because there would be all sorts of contested recounts in many, many places in different states and counties all over the place. Not a word of it. Never needed to happen, because he won by a galactic landslide. Now, I just want to reflect on this for a second, because there's some obvious stuff to get out of the way first. Yes, utterly inept Joe Biden, who couldn't string a sentence together in that debate. The fact that his hubris kept him clinging on by his fingernails to power much, much longer than he should have done. The fact that he thought he was the only one who could defeat Donald Trump from winning a second term. And the fact that when he was effectively unceremoniously booted out by the Democratic Party because the donors had lost faith with Biden's ability to stop a second Trump term, we then saw everyone rallying around Kamala Harris. Why? Not because of her innate brilliance or her brilliant oratory or because of any great policy prescription or platform. No, it was down to sure and utter relief. Relief that they had someone who could actually sound at least cogent or at least awake when dealing with major debates on air. So that's how we ended up with Kamala Harris. But I tell you this, a lot of Democrats, a lot of people in the US, not even just Democrats, felt that it was a bit remiss, and they felt that this wasn't democratic at all. They had been foisted with this candidate with no primary selection process at all. Highly irregular, and you can blame Joe Biden for that because he didn't leave the party enough time. So he should have gone earlier, and the Democrats should have had a democratic election, series of primaries, for two reasons. One, because it's the right thing to do and it's democratic to do that. And secondly, it would have tested Kamala Harris and seen what her mettle was and what she was made of and what her policy prescription was, which actually turned out to be a big fat zero. I mean, when asked on 60 Minutes what her prescription for office, what her rationale for office was, what she would do differently to what Joe Biden had done for the previous 4 years, not much difference at all. Struggled with the question. Now, that is very, very odd. And it reminds me of a friend of mine, Mark McKinnon, who worked with George W. Bush. I met him many, many years ago in Russia. We were both speaking in St. Petersburg at a conference at the time. And he was the master of political strategy. And the one thing he said is, when you're running for president, you need to know what your rationale for office is. What is your rationale for office? What was Kamala Harris's rationale for office? Dunno. Do you? I have no idea at all. So just hold that thought for 1 second. And also mix into the fact that the Democrats solely focused this whole election, or principally focused this election, not completely, but principally, I would say, around a referendum on abortion rights. Now, that is a very important issue, quite rightly, to many, many people in the US. It's not the only issue. It's not the most salient issue, because the most salient issue, as has always been the case in every election, not just in the US, but around the world, is it's the economy, stupid. Now, I'm going to come to my analysis of what went wrong for the Democrats in a moment. But they were obsessed with identity politics, that you should vote against or vote for the reinstatement of abortion rights across the states if you are a woman, that if you are a Hispanic voter or a black voter, you must vote for a black woman for president. It was predicated on identity politics. And we've had a bit of that here, haven't we? We've had a bit of that here, and I'm going to come to this in a second. But I want to ask you this question. Could Britain's Trump moment be coming? Could Britain's Trump moment be coming? 0345 6060 973, text 84850. Ask Alexa to send a comment to LBC. Now, let me unpick what the Trump moment was first and why it occurred, and then why I think it may be coming here. Now, if you just take a step back for a second and think about the main issues that matter to people in the US election, principally the economy, as I said, despite whatever the GDP numbers are and whatever the economic analysts tell people about how fortunate they are and how the unemployment rate is low, if people feel that the prices have gone up exponentially over a presidential term and they're feeling it in their pocket, and I went to New York just a few weeks ago, I mean, that's Manhattan, for heaven's sake. Not exactly a cheap place at the best of times, but it's exponentially increased in price. Really, really expensive. I mean, you know, I'm very lucky. I've got a few bob in the bank. You know, I'm very fortunate. I'm finding it difficult, right, as a tourist to go. Well, not as a tourist, I was on business, but as someone from outside to go there. The ordinary Joe who's trying to scrape by and make a living is going to be finding it incredibly difficult to survive. So the economy was the number one issue that people were focused on, about prices. Number one. Now, secondly, the second most important issue for many voters was immigration. The fact that they look at the southern border and they see that 4 million people have come in under Biden, totally uncontrolled on the southern border, and it was 1 million when Trump was around. And they think to themselves, and many of these people are immigrants, by the way, and they're thinking, hang on a second, we had to queue in line to get into this place, and now there are other people who are not queuing in line. What on earth is going on? This isn't cricket or baseball or American football. I mean, we play by the rules here. Why are there people not playing by the rules and then imposing all sorts of burdens and engaging in some cases, criminality, which is just a fact, by the way? We don't like it. We're going to vote against this nonsense. And the third thing was this assumption on the part of the Democrats, and it's not just the Democrats, it's generally people on the left, this assumption, this patting your head type assumption that if you're from the liberal elite, you know best, and everyone else around you should be voting on the basis of what they are, not who they are, or what they might think. No, absolutely not. No, you must vote for the restoration of abortion rights and Roe v. Wade if you're a woman. And if you're not, that is an absolute disgrace. How dare you? And we're going to commission a video with Julia Roberts to tell you not to be dictated to by your husband who votes for Trump. How on earth could you think about voting Republican if you're a woman? You're a disgrace. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if you're an ethnic minority, you're an even bigger disgrace. How could you? How could you do this? How could you commit the immoral act of voting for a convicted felon over a black woman? If you're black or Hispanic or from any other ethnic minority, shame on you. Shame on you. How could you do it, you betrayers of your own skin colour? It's absolutely outrageous and disgraceful. That was the attitude of the Democrats. And if anyone was in any doubt about the result, the Democrats have just got their backsides kicked in a galactic way. And identity politics and the focus on that is a large part of it. I mean, if you think this analysis is like pie in the sky and outlandish, just look at the results. Go and look at what people are saying. It's not me saying it. It's what people are saying. Now, was I surprised that Trump won? No, I wasn't surprised at all. Was I surprised by the level of the victory and the scale of the victory? Yes, I was. And I think Donald Trump is himself surprised by the scale. But actually, it might be a healing moment for the US because it's totally emphatic. There's no doubt about it at all. And I think until people on the left get over this notion of thinking that their own view of the world should be assumed by everyone else like a religion, and if you don't subscribe to the religion that you are beyond the pale and must be denigrated and destroyed and ostracized, they're going to be in the doghouse for a very, very long time. Just reflect on it. A convicted felon beat your candidate, a black woman. And it doesn't matter how many times the Obamas stand up and say, this is the time you need to vote for this black woman. No one cares. They're not listening. They're checked out. And a lot of the people who have checked out are women themselves, black people, Hispanic voters, and the working class. Does that sound familiar to you? Because I tell you this. If anyone's getting overexcited about the fact that Labour won a landslide majority on the back of about 34% of the vote in this country, when you have, quite rightly, the Conservatives being trounced because they were a shower and they needed to go. But if you're lulling yourself into a false sense of security that this is the rise of some great absolute support for some left-wing view of the world, think again, my friends. Think again. Because you've got 4 million voters who voted for reform, and for the first time ever, they've got 5 people in Parliament. So when I ask you the question, could Britain's Trump moment be coming? I would say, no, it's already come. Twice. Brexit, 2016, you didn't listen then. Boris Johnson in 2019, you didn't listen then. Although Boris Johnson stood on a lot of things and then totally screwed them up by not reducing immigration, but the direction of travel from the voters was clear. So you've had 2 indications so far in this country that people want immigration to come down, that they're sick and tired of identity politics. They want things like gender puberty blockers to be very, very carefully looked at when it comes to kids. They don't feel that it's fair for trans people. And by the way, I have a lot of respect for trans people on an individual basis, but a lot of people feel that this should not become a political mantra when it comes to women-only spaces and prisons and other things. These are serious issues, and the left has got them like religion. Because in a demise of religion in a country which is becoming increasingly secular, this is now the new religion. So just reflect on that and just think about where this could all be going. Because in Europe, increasing number of countries are turning to the right. Germany, Austria, Italy, Spain has had its own things. Who would bet against Le Pen becoming the next president of France? I wouldn't, would you? Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, closed out of power but won the majority of the votes. And in this country at the moment, reform's on the rise, and you then have people who do the Uniting the Kingdom rallies, which have got a lot of support out there, even if a minority of those people go around putting fireworks into mosques, which is absolutely heinous and unforgivable. There are many, many other people in this country who actually feel that they've been completely ignored and looked down upon and sneered at by people who don't understand them. And let me just leave you with this little thought here. Francis Fukuyama, remember him? Yeah, interesting guy. Stanford professor, saw him in Berlin a couple of years ago. He had a new book out about liberalism and its discontents, effectively. He was the one who wrote after the fall of the Berlin Wall that history had ended. He's got a piece in the FT today. What Trump unleashed means for America and what it means for liberalism. And the fact of the matter is this. He says this. Over the past half century, the basic impulse went in there were 2 distortions to classic liberalism. The first was the rise of neoliberalism, an economic doctrine that sanctified markets. The second distortion was the rise of identity politics, or what one might call woke liberalism. On both of those, you utterly have got a kicking in the form of Donald Trump, who's coming out with mercantilist, America first, economic and trade policies, and a complete and utter rejection of woke liberalism. Could it happen here? Yeah, I'm certainly expecting that it could, and it already has started. Could Britain's Trump moment be coming?